working for you.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for 10 News at 6. I'm Brittany McGraw. Jessica Jewell has the night off. The search continues to reunite a family after tubers disappeared while floating down the Dan River. The search has been happening since Thursday in Rockingham County, North Carolina, just across the Virginia border. Crews from Danville and Pittsylvania County were called in to help. We're told 9 people went tubing on Wednesday when they were swept over the Duke Energy Dam. 2 adults and 2 teens were rescued the next day. The bodies of 2 adults and a 14-year-old girl were found nearly 3 miles downriver, while 35-year-old Teresa Villano and 7-year-old Isaiah Crawford are still missing. The sheriff tells us he's still optimistic that this is a search and not a recovery mission. Numerous agencies were on the water for 11 hours yesterday, but a new set of crews were called in today. We're told the plan was to search from the Duke Energy plant all the way to the Virginia state line. Stay with us on air and online for updates on the search and rescue efforts. We're continuing to post the latest information on WSLS.com. 2 people are being treated for life-threatening injuries after being involved in a crash with a car in Franklin County. Authorities say it happened last night on Snow Creek Road. They say a car crossed the center line and hit the motorcycle. 2 people were thrown from that motorcycle and were flown to a hospital for treatment. The driver of the car was also taken to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Today is Juneteenth, the new federal holiday commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. It was back on this day in 1865 when a Union general arrived in Galveston, Texas, and demanded absolute equality for enslaved people in Texas. It was the day the Emancipation Proclamation was officially recognized in Texas, 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed it. Today, a new mural was unveiled in the holiday's honor.
What I hope this gift is, that we will now do this unafraid deep dive into a history that rarely is spoken of.
Has recognized Juneteenth as a holiday since 1980. Roanoke is celebrating freedom on the now federally recognized holiday. Calling it the center of Northwest Roanoke, musical performances sparked energy in the crowd at Eureka Park. More than 40 vendors lined up to sell food, clothing, cultural merchandise, and explain the history of Juneteenth to the crowd. 17-year-old Jennifer Bean says today is a time to honor the ancestors who paved a path for future generations. And that event is starting to wrap up now, but the organizing committee says they are already starting to plan for next year. In honor of Juneteenth, a new museum aims to honor America's most famous abolitionist. The museum in Cape May, New Jersey, pays tribute to Harriet Tubman, the organizer of the Underground Railroad. Tubman worked in the area around the museum in the 1850s, using her earnings to help rescue enslaved people. The museum was slated to open last year, but finally opened its doors for the first time today.
Very important to let the young people know the struggles that were made for freedom for the African Americans.
To have this museum open on this day is really a wonderful, not a coincidence, but it's just a wonderful juxtaposition of 2 very important dates.
The Smithsonian Magazine says the opening was one of the most anticipated for this year. As many across the country celebrate Juneteenth, some hope a new statue reminds us of the ongoing struggle for social justice. The 6-foot statue unveiled today in Brooklyn honors George Floyd, who was killed by a Minneapolis police officer last year. His murder sparked a global movement for racial justice. Floyd's brother was on hand for the unveiling, recognizing the importance of Juneteenth and keeping his brother's memory alive.
The situation that happened to my brother, it did happen to other people, but it could have happened to anyone. We hold a power And once we understand that, we can really understand and celebrate Juneteenth.
The statue will stay in Brooklyn for several weeks before moving to Union Square in Manhattan. Bringing heavy rain and flooding across the central Gulf Coast, Claudette is the first storm to make landfall this hurricane season. It made landfall near New Orleans, drenching the region with more than 9 inches of rain. Last year, Louisiana was hit by 5 hurricanes, and people there are doing the best they can to protect their belongings.
The condition coming in from last night, starting around maybe 6:30 p.m. until this morning, it had just been consistent rain, nonstop rain. Normally it does that. This street tend to does this off. This is the worst I've seen it since the 2 years I've been around here.
Claudette has already weakened to a tropical depression.
Your local weather authority, always watching and tracking for you from the JES Weather Center.
Temperatures running warmer today, and of course that humidity is higher. It was feeling downright muggy outside. Temperatures are mostly in the 80s at this point, a few lower 90s in Southside, and holding on to the upper 70s over in Wytheville. Here in Roanoke, we're now at 87 degrees. For tonight, temperatures will be running very mild. In fact, staying in the lower 70s in areas like Roanoke, back towards Alta Vista, and even Danville, reaching into the 60s by tomorrow morning in the New River Valley and the Highlands. For Father's Day, things are going to be starting off good. However, it is still going to be another muggy day. Temperatures running just a few degrees cooler, also staying in the 80s for many of us. We will have the potential for some rain, but it is looking very isolated, and we'll look at that here in just a moment. But temperatures will be ranging anywhere from the mid to upper 70s to the lower 90s. Still tapping into the 90s there in Lynchburg, but here in Roanoke reaching 87 degrees. As we just mentioned, it is now Tropical Depression Claudette that made landfall as a tropical storm earlier. It has been weakening, but we are still going to be watching that potential for some rain as it continues to make its track towards the east and eventually towards the northeast. Notice how it looks like that track stays just to the south of us. We'll be watching it very closely as we go throughout the next several hours to make sure that that track stays just to our south. So 8 a.m. things are looking fairly quiet for us. Right around lunchtime, there's some of that rain starting to move into south side, and it's just going to kind of stick around heading into the afternoon and evening hours. But from there on out, things are going to be fairly quiet. We're not looking at much in the way of any severe weather. Just keep your umbrella handy, especially if you live, say, south of 460. 7-day forecast has our temperatures running much warmer by Monday, keeping those humid conditions. And then Tuesday, our most active day for some rain. From there, we're calming down and our humidity will be dropping once again. Brittany?
Coming up on 10 News at 11, from changes for Virginia Tech students to Star City construction, it has been a busy week in Southwest Virginia. We're working for you to bring you this week's top talkers. Well, that does it for 10 News at 6. Thanks so much for joining us online. We will see you back on the TV tonight at 11. See you then.